All right, we begin with a Fox News alert. The suspected gunman who brought Atlanta to a standstill for hours yesterday, and everyone watching our channel, is in custody this morning.
Police accuse him of killing at least one person and hurting 4 other individuals in the medical center's waiting room.
In Atlanta right now, Jonathan Seri joins us with all the latest developments in this case. Jonathan, good morning.
Yeah. Good morning to you, Steve, Ainsley, and Brian. The suspect is identified as 24-year-old Dion Patterson. He is charged with murder and 4 counts of aggravated assault. He is now in custody. Authorities say he opened fire in a medical office building waiting room here in Midtown Atlanta, seriously injuring 4 women and killing 38-year-old Amy St. Pierre, who worked for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The agency says CDC is deeply saddened by the unexpected loss of a colleague killed today in the Midtown Atlanta shooting. Our hearts are with her family, friends, and colleagues as they remember her and grieve this tragic loss. Police received the call of the active shooter at 12:08 yesterday afternoon. They say the gunman spent only 2 minutes in the medical building and left in a stolen car. Around 7:45 last night, police located the suspect near Truist Park Stadium in suburban Cobb County. Take a listen.
An undercover officer was the one that originally saw and confronted this individual and was able to then have backup from uniform officers that came in and took him into custody without incident. It does not work without a cooperative community, a community that backs up the police, that allows the police to take risks and try to take violent people into custody.
The suspect was discharged from the Coast Guard in January after serving 4.5 years there. Patterson's mother, who had accompanied her son to the medical building for an appointment, appeared to blame improper medicine for the outburst, telling the Daily Beast the damn VA gave him some messed up medication and all he wanted was an Ativan. Now, the Midtown Medical Building here where the shooting took place is associated with the Northside Hospital System. Hospital System says this building in Midtown will be closed today. All patient appointments canceled, and they're urging patients to reach out to their providers to reschedule. Back to you guys.
So, Jonathan, if he went to the hospital with his mother because the VA gave him some messed up meds, as they said, and he became enraged in the waiting room, do we know why he became enraged?
No, that's something police are still investigating. They have not yet released a motive, but that mother, at least in her interview with the Daily Beast, seemed to suggest it had something to do with the medication that he was receiving for mental health issues.
You know, it's interesting, Jonathan, in New York, you don't walk through a hospital without a metal detector. You've got to empty your pockets to go through. How did this guy get a gun in?
Yeah, it's a little different here in the metro Atlanta area. You can walk into hospitals without going through a massive screening, and this was an outpatient building with multiple private practices, so less security than what you would see at a flagship hospital such as Northside Medical Center, the main hospital campus in suburban Atlanta.
Jonathan, I know he was in the Coast Guard and he was discharged just this past January. Do we know why? Was it honorable discharge?
The Coast Guard didn't release any details about the circumstances behind his discharge, just that it happened in January and that he had served with the Coast Guard for 4.5 years. They say that their investigative unit with the Coast Guard is assisting local authorities here in Atlanta and the surrounding community as they investigate what happened here yesterday.
All right. Jonathan Seri live in Atlanta. Jonathan, thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan. In Washington, a whistleblower claims there is a document detailing a criminal scheme involving the then Vice President Joe Biden. Now Republican lawmakers are demanding the FBI turn that information over.
Wow, this is getting interesting. This comes as a decision is reportedly coming soon in the federal criminal investigation of Hunter Biden, 4 years and counting.
Lucas Tomlinson joins us live from the Bureau. So, Lucas, it sounds like 2 different Bidens involved in these 2 different stories.
That's right, and both under federal investigations, Steve. Now, the Chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, and Senator Chuck Grassley say they have new information from a whistleblower involving then Vice President Biden in an alleged pay-to-play scheme. They wrote a letter to Biden's Attorney General demanding the FBI file that, quote, describe.
Already in the Senate, and of course they lost the White House back in 2020. Right. So we'll see if this is going to move forward, and we got to see who this whistleblower is. Miranda Devine, who's been all over this, knew more about all what was going on with the Biden family before most of us. She wrote The Laptop from Hell. Talked about this in perspective and thinks it's really getting close to an answer.
The proverbial walls are really closing in, and it's just incredible that Hunter Biden would choose to create this drama in Arkansas right at this time when you've got the Delaware criminal investigation into him looks to be coming to a head this week. You've got his father now being accused by a new whistleblower. You have the ACOMA Oversight Committee is closing in on a lot of the financial records. They've now found up to a dozen family members, immediate family members of Joe Biden, have received money. That's what he's finding from these financial records.
So what the Republicans are asking for, they're asking for something I'd never heard of before, an FD 1023 file.
Hike.
And what it is apparently that is an FBI record of interaction with the confidential human source. That's somebody who came in. Brett Tolman, the former federal prosecutor, was on with Jesse last night, and he looked at all this, and he said what he thought it was somebody probably called the FBI and said, we have evidence about Joe Biden. So they did an interview. And of course, as we've learned over the last couple of years, when they write down everything they ask him, and they ask him every detail, they put it in a so-called 302 form. So they've got that. This probably relates to that, according to Mr. Tolman, which it's a good supposition. So they interviewed somebody. They wrote down everything they said. The question is then, did the FBI, the DOJ, did they deem that person reliable or not reliable? Did they follow it up? Is the case still open? The House Republicans and the Senate Republicans are making a lot of statements, but we don't have many answers. They just would like that. They would like to get that document from the FBI, but I bet you $1 the FBI's got a million reasons they will come up with not to release.
Well, they don't believe that this is the same whistleblower who came forward last month with the IRS.
Sounds like an FBI
They
person.
said the document subpoenaed by the panel was created or modified in June of 2020. That was months before the election, and it must be supplied at the committee meeting on May 10th.
Yeah, keep in mind that stenographer, Michael McCormick, last week, who says this is a corrupt family. I witnessed it up close and personal. I don't know what happened to his testimony, but I look forward to him being coming forward. I just know the previous administration, if there was any rumor of the FBI having documents, suddenly they would appear in the Washington Post, and every commentator would have a source in the FBI that reveals that something's going on with Donald Trump, and they're doing an investigation like they'd never seen before. But now, with a legitimate subpoena to get paperwork, people worry about them not giving it up. It's bizarre. Meanwhile, 11 minutes after the hour, today, embattled DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas is set to visit the southern border. By the way, it's sealed, as Title 42 expires in just 1 week. I'm sure they're ready. Oh, that's secure. You're right. Texas DPS Lieutenant
Attorney Alvin Bragg is investigating the death of a homeless man who was placed in a chokehold by a subway passenger earlier this week. Police say the man had been acting erratically when a Marine veteran put him in a headlock and other passengers stepped in to restrain him. He eventually passed out and EMS workers were unable to revive him. Yesterday, the city's medical examiner ruled the incident a homicide. The Marine was taken into custody, but later released without charges. Protesters marching through New York City yesterday demanding justice for the homeless man. Nashville police are delaying the release of the manifesto written by Covenant school shooter Audrey Hale. The department saying yesterday that due to litigation filed this week, they have been advised by counsel to hold the release of those documents. Earlier this week, the Tennessee Firearms Association filed a lawsuit demanding the release of Hale's journals, which were found by authorities along with a suicide note and several Covenant school yearbooks. The shooting in March left 6 people dead, including 3 9-year-old children. Overnight, Elon Musk's SpaceX launches dozens of Starlink satellites into orbit. A Falcon 9 rocket carrying 56 satellites, adding to the over 4,000 already in service. This was Falcon 9's 27th launch and the 7th overall flight for this booster, a strategy that helps SpaceX cut down on the overall cost. And those are some of your headlines, Ainsley. Over to you.
Okay, good deal. Thank you so much, Ashley. DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas is heading to the southern border today, to speak with local officials and to review CBP and ICE operations before Title 42 expires in only one more week. Encounters at the southern border are up over 15% this fiscal year compared to the same time last year. And with Title 42 ending soon, it's bound to get worse. Lieutenant Chris Olivares from the Texas Department of Public Safety joins us now. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Nancy. Thanks for having me on.
Good morning. Well, thanks for coming on. You know, you see this firsthand. You're down there. Do these visits by Mayorkas help or hurt?
They don't help at all whatsoever, Ansley. When we look at all the visits that the Secretary has done for the past 2 years, you just show the numbers there on the screen. And, of course, the numbers continue to get much worse every single month, every single year. So with all these visits that have been taking place, there hasn't been any significant change as far as to prevent the number of people coming across the border legally, to prevent gotaways, to prevent the amount of drugs, fentanyl, suspected terrorists coming across the border. So I don't foresee that this visit's going to change anything. If you actually, keep in mind, right now Title 42 is in place. They did have the CBP One app that's supposed to decrease the number of people coming across the border, but the numbers speak for themselves. The events that are taking place along the border speak for themselves. So nothing has changed. The situation has gotten much worse.
We'll put up Mayorkas' plan. He has a post-Title 42 plan. These are some of the things that he wants to implement, including expel through Title 8, bar reentry for 5 years, and you can read it all right there on your screen. What are your predictions on May 11th when Title 42 ends?
Well, Anthony, right now we're seeing a significant increase along the southwest border with encounters. Every single sector has increased the amount of people that have been coming across. Also, keep in mind, too, the shelters in Mexico right now. There's thousands waiting in Mexico right now. Plus, you have potential caravans that are making their way because they're all aware that May 11th is a free-for-all where anyone that comes across the border will be released into the country. And I say that because I've spoken to some of the migrants myself, and they tell me the reason why some of them are coming right now is because they have family, they have friends that have been released into the country, so that's why they're coming. The CBP One app does not work. Now, if they would just follow through with their policies, the policies that were working prior to 2021, the Remain in Mexico policy, the Safe Third Country agreements, the construction of the border wall, and also apply consequences, we would not be seeing or experience what we're seeing right now, especially going into Title 42. And they've had 2 years to put a plan in place of Title 42, but yet they have not done so. So I don't know if that's ignorance or just intentional, but the fact of the matter is they're allowing this to happen.
What do you expect will happen? Biden sending the 1,500 additional active duty troops down there. We're hearing mainly to do clerical work. Is that true?
That's what I understand, and of course that's not going to solve the problem at all. That's not going to alleviate the constant processing for Border Patrol agents because they won't be allowed to process. So you're still going to have agents processing. You're still going to have agents pull from the field to process the amount of people that are coming across the border legally. So these soldiers really are going to just be used for administrative purposes, which is not the role for an active duty U.S. soldier. If you look at what Texas National Guard is doing when Governor Abbott launched them, they're actually taking some type of enforcement action, some type of deterrence. They've been able to stop 38,000 potential illegal counters between the ports of entry. They've been putting up razor wire fencing. So different roles and what the U.S. soldiers are going to be doing, but it's not going to solve anything. Mm-hmm. It's not going to prevent anything. So it's just another. And also, if you look back to prior to the 2021, there was a criticism for the previous administration sending U.S. troops to the border. Mm-hmm. So again, just completely undermines their claims that their plan and policies are working, and the fact that the border is secure by them sending U.S. troops to the border.
Well, Lieutenant, I know DPS was involved in that manhunt at the beginning of the week. So thank you for your service, and please thank all the men and women in your department for that.
I will. Appreciate your support. Thank you,
Lieutenant. We have a Fox News alert. An hours-long manhunt. This one happened in Atlanta that brought...
In Texas, where the illegal immigrant charged with murdering 5 of his neighbors, including a 9-year-old boy, is being held on $7.5 million bond. Francisco Oropeza was arrested after he was found hiding in a closet under laundry thanks to a tip sent into the FBI. His romantic partner is also facing charges for allegedly hindering the 4-day manhunt. Authorities believe she hid him in the home where he was arrested on Tuesday. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky reportedly in the Netherlands today for a surprise visit, just 1 day after denying Russian claims that a Ukrainian drone strike was launched to take out Vladimir Putin. Watch.
We don't attack Putin or Moscow. We fight on our territory. We are defending our villages and cities.
This as Ukraine launched defense forces earlier today, shooting down 18 of 24 drones believed to be launched by Russia. U.S. officials are warning to take everything the Kremlin says with very large shaker of salt. Now, the brother of Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes is facing charges for aggravated sexual battery. Jackson Mahomes was arrested yesterday for an incident that happened back in February. The owner of a Kansas restaurant says Mahomes forcibly kissed her multiple times, even as she tried pushing him away. The 22-year-old suspect who denied the allegations back in March was quickly released on $100,000 bond. Mahomes will appear in court next Thursday. And those are your headlines, guys.
All right. Thank you, Ashley.
You're welcome.
We have a Fox News alert. This morning, the suspect accused of opening fire in the Atlanta Medical Center now in custody after killing a woman and injuring 4 others.
Now we are learning more about that man, the 24-year-old suspect who was discharged from the Coast Guard in January of this year, as his mother speaks out blaming the VA for giving him, quote, messed up medication.
All right, former Special Agent Jonathan Gilliam joins us now. He serves the U.S. Navy SEALs, knows all about this with his law enforcement background. Jonathan, what sticks out, the way this unfolded, catching up to the guy where he did, and then having him arrested, from what you know right now, what stands out about this incident?
Well, I don't know if this was a premeditated attack, but he did have a gun with him when he went in there. So a lot of these hospital attacks, and that's what this appears to have been, stem from a prior incident, or they stem from a domestic incident, and possibly he had a relationship with somebody in the hospital. Those are typically the two things that these types of attacks happen, or what causes them to occur. And then the fact that the shooter, he was in there for about 2 minutes, he killed one person and injured others, it sounds like within a few seconds or minutes, his emotional outburst had stopped and he fled, and then he went to hide. So he didn't continue a killing. So I don't think it was terrorism related. I think this is going to come down to an issue that occurred, not just medication, but an issue that occurred and quite frankly could have been premeditated when he went in there.
Jonathan, this is what we know about the suspect. He entered the Coast Guard in 2018 as an electrician's mate, second class, discharged from active duty this past January. DUI charges dropped in 2017, arrested twice for violating probation in 2017, arrested and charged with possession of marijuana in 2015. He's only 24 years old. What is happening when we're seeing all these school shootings or individuals like this who are upset about something and they just plow down everyone? There were 5 women sitting in that waiting room and they all were hit.
You know, Ainsley, this goes back. This is a long conversation, but a very simple answer. The fact is our society has broken down. I think it starts with the family and at school. When these people are not taught to control their anger anymore, there's no discipline in schools. In many cases, there's no discipline at home. And so we have a generation or a couple generations of young people and middle-aged people who are not disciplined in controlling their anger. When you throw into that things like gender confusion, drug abuse, and long-standing issues with authority, you're going to have people that do this. And this is something that has grown as social media has grown and as the Department of Education has completely fallen apart. There is a lack of discipline in this world. And when you add mental instability, which drugs will lead to that, and this individual does have a history with drugs and DUI, of substance abuse, this is the type of thing that you'll see in almost every single one of these shooters. I would have to say all of these types of shooters typically have emotional or rage issues, sometimes brought on medication, but definitely brought on by the fact that the way children are raised right now is just not doing the trick.
Well, what's unique about this is he went to the hospital with his mother and then became enraged in the lobby. And we asked Jonathan Siri why he got enraged, and the motive has not yet been revealed, maybe later today. Jonathan, thank you very much for joining us live.
Thank you.
You got it. Thank you.
You bet.
Yeah, we're still waiting on the manifesto to find out what the shooter was thinking in Nashville. Oh, we can't really get on that.
That's not coming out.
There was medication involved with this. I mean, there were times in which Jonathan was saying that if you were a discipline problem, you got detention, now you get Ritalin. You know, I'm wondering about all these behavior modification medicines and if anyone's doing an effective study on that. ADD, you got something? You know, there seems to be quick to get people on some type of mood-altering drug. Well, legally.
According to his mother in the Daily Beast, all he wanted was an Ativan, which is for anxiety. So he was anxious, obviously. More later, I'm sure. In the meantime, coming up on this Thursday's show, a chilling moment caught on camera. A baby in a stroller, look at that, heading right into a busy street. A hero bystander whose split-second decision saved the day. Coming up.
Plus, the Fed raising rates again as Jerome Powell.
Headlines for you. A Texas judge has denied a request for a new murder trial for that soldier that Governor Abbott wants to pardon. Sergeant Daniel Perry was convicted last month of killing an armed Black Lives Matter protester back in 2020. Perry requested a retrial over improper jury behavior. After the verdict, Governor Abbott tweeted, quote, "I'm working as swiftly as Texas law allows regarding the pardon of Sergeant Perry." Look at this. It's a chilling moment that was caught on camera. That baby stroller with the baby inside is heading toward traffic on this California street before a bystander thankfully jumps in at the last second. The baby's caretaker, whose back was turned when it started rolling, falls and trips several times, unable to chase that stroller. Looks like she might have been injured. It's unclear, though, if she suffered any injuries from that fall, but the baby was not hurt, thank goodness. And may the 4th be with you. Today's unofficial Star Wars holiday celebrates a popular phrase that was coined by the iconic series creator George Lucas, "May the Force be with you." The movie released nearly 46 years ago. Hollywood marking the galaxy far, far away, honoring Princess Leia actress Carrie Fisher with a star on the Walk of Fame. It is set to be placed next to her co-star, Mark Hamill's star. And those are your headlines. Down to you, Steve.
And may the 4th
May
be
the
with
4th
you.
be with you as well.
Indeed. All right, thanks, Andy. Well, the U.S. banking crisis may be far from over. This morning, focus is shifting to, have you heard of PacWest? Pacific Western Bank. As its stocks plummet, following news, the bank is weighing its strategic options. The shares of many West Coast regional banks have been hit particularly hard since the collapse of West Coast Silicon Valley Bank, the first of 3 major bank collapses since March. So this is the 4th. May the 4th be with us. Right now, to talk a little more about it, we got the host of Making Money on Fox Business, Charles Payne. Charles, this is not what we need to hear.
It's not. I think one of the sad ironies of it all is yesterday the Federal Reserve got together and hiked rates for the 10th time. And during a press conference, Chairman Powell was pretty adamant that the banking system was sound and resilient. 90 minutes later, PacWest down 60%. Oops. And it's not just PacWest, but a lot of larger names. Key Bank is under a lot of pressure here. A few of them are. Right. We're going up the ladder, to some of these more well-known names that I would consider them not just regional, but what you might call super regional. Like they're all over the country. So it really is worrisome. And the Federal Reserve, though, what's really problematic is they won't accept any sort of responsibility for any of this, how fast they've raised rates. B, they won't accept responsibility on lack of supervision. And that's really scary because all of these powers that we've given to them, they're abusing them or ignoring them.
Right. And I don't get where they don't accept responsibility because, as the White House has said, the Fed is completely independent. It's all on them. Of course, if I was at the White House, that's what I would say, too. Here's Jerome Powell yesterday talking about how they've jacked up the rates to the highest level in 16 years.
With today's action, we have raised interest rates by 5 percentage points in a little more than a year. We are seeing the effects of our policy tightening on demand in the most interest rate sensitive sectors of the economy, particularly housing and investment. It will take time, however, for the full effects of monetary restraint to be realized, especially on inflation.
So what they're trying to do is they're trying to get inflation down to 2%. We're still way north of that, and he wants a soft landing. Unfortunately, we heard from some people yesterday, we'll probably have a little mild recession.
Yeah, even the economists at the Federal Reserve have said a mild recession. Now, yesterday, Chairman Powell was adamant. He doesn't believe it. He does believe he can engineer a so-called soft landing. You know what's really tough about this for a regular person out there? If you go to the mall, you're pissing off the Federal Reserve. If you go to the movies, you're pissing off the Federal Reserve.
Because you're spending money?
Because you're spending money. And it really is perverse in a way. I mean, think about this for a moment. He just said we want to hurt investments. We want to hurt the housing market. The core of what grew America to the greatest country in the world. The core of most people's central, your key investment in your life, the American dream, your home. Do you want your home price to go down in value? This is what they're trying to engineer. And I just think, listen, they want to stick with the 2% rate, which I think is an arbitrary.
We fight on our territory. We are defending our villages and cities.
Member of the House Armed Services Committee and House Homeland Security Committee, Congressman Nick LaLota joins us now. Congressman, thanks for getting up with us this morning. Earlier, the Kremlin released a statement saying we regard these actions as a planned terrorist act and an attempt on the president's life. The Russian side reserves the right to take retaliatory measures where and when it sees fit. Your reaction to this?
Yeah, I think there's one thing that you can count on with respect to the brutal dictator Vladimir Putin, that he's probably not telling the truth. He wasn't telling the truth 15 months ago when he was amassing troops near the Ukrainian border, saying it was just a peaceful exercise and a demonstration, and then he invaded that country. He lied last month when the U.S. drone was downed over the Black Sea, losing a $32 million drone, not taking accountability for that. And it's likely that he's lying again here and using it for a cause and an excuse to enter into a new elevated phase of the war.
Do you think that cause and excuse is really a false flag to provide pretext to go after Vladimir Zelensky?
We're new into the details of this, but yes, I think that's the likely inference, is that he's trying to use it as a pretext to do another phase into Ukraine, to elevate what he has done unlawfully there. It's not a surprise to any of us that he would try to use that as an excuse to advance his criminal agenda there.
Let's switch gears now to President Joe Biden. The House Oversight Committee is subpoenaing the FBI for a document that a whistleblower says describes a criminal scheme involving then Vice President Joe Biden. Listen to this.
We have credible information that this possible criminal activity took place, and I can't verify whether or not it's really criminal activity, but I do have faith in the whistleblowers that bring it to me that this document exists.
Congressman, there's obviously still a lot that we don't know that needs to come out, but you're on the House Armed Services Committee and Homeland Security Committee. So how does this implicate the president?
Yeah, so we do know some of these details. We do know the president's son made millions of dollars in countries whose languages he did not speak, in sectors that he had no professional experience. We do know that. We also know he was involved in drugs and prostitutes, and we think that the Oversight Committee is right to ignore that aspect of it and focus on the money that's come from those foreign countries. Americans have a lot of questions as to what the president knew, if the president benefited from those dollars going to his son, again, in those countries where he had no experiences, languages he did not speak, in sectors he had no experience. We need to know what the president's involvement in that was. Now, the White House had said that there's nothing wrong there. The president did nothing wrong. So the president should answer this subpoena, should reveal any facts related to it so we can get to the bottom of it right away.
The alleged document describes, and this is the key phrase, the exchange of money for policy decisions. If these allegations prove true, sir, must Joe Biden be impeached?
Well, we never want a president who's compromised, especially with our chief adversaries. The president's son was doing business in and around countries where we have a lot of adversaries. And we need to find out these details. If we're going to go down that road, we need to make it blatantly clear to the American public that he has been compromised, if he in fact has been. We can't go down the road of half-faith impeachments anymore. We need to show the American public the facts on this, and if the facts do just that, I think the American public will be with us.
And then really quickly, I got to get your thoughts on this. So much for the Democrats saying Republicans were just blowing this one out of proportion. But New York passes the first in the nation ban on gas stoves. Your thoughts really quickly.
Yeah, we're New Yorkers. We're a proud state. We're the Empire State, but we're a little less proud under one-party rule. Unfortunately, we have the dubious distinction of leading the country in two key factors. One, out-of-state migration. More people leave our state than any other state. And two, we have the highest tax burden of any of the 50 states. Yeah. And this new policy, on top of the bail reform policy, is another reason why New Yorkers are a little less proud
Much
of
more
their
to
state.
focus
It's government
on.
gone wild.